Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense. I wanted to sit down this morning and shoot a quick Bitcoin/cryptocurrency market update for April the 19th. It's just after 8 a.m. my time. I figured I'd sit down and do this video because a lot's been happening, a lot of volatility, a lot of movement. So I wanted to show you some channels that I'm watching, also show you some different things that you might want to keep your eye on. So first things first, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, don't forget you can check the description for additional links where you can support the channel and get additional content. Let's talk about a theory that I had last week that I posted up on Twitter. I believe I also put this in the Facebook group, and I know that I went into more detail on it in the Discord, but essentially what I was hypothesizing was that this could have been, and no guarantees, but that this had the potential to be wick-off distribution, and that this pump, once they broke this level, was actually the UTAD, or the upthrust after distribution. If that was the case, what we should have seen was a series of lower lows, lower highs, and then the break through support. And in fact, what we actually saw was exactly that. We saw it go up, come down, lower high, lower low, lower high, and break through support. So if this is what's happening, what we can expect, I get rid of volume and everything for just a moment, we can expect a pump back into test what used to be demand, but is now flipped to supply, and then we can expect more downside if this is distribution. I want you to keep a close eye on that. One of the things that I told my Patreon and my Discord was that I wouldn't look for short positions until we broke the channel that we were in. Well, we did break that channel. That channel looked like this. There we go. So we had a channel that looked something like this, right? A couple of touches up top, 3 touches down bottom, and then boom, we broke it right around 59,000, right? So that was one reason that you might want to go short on Bitcoin. What we had was this zone all through here that should have, if you were a bull, should have held up as demand, should have came down and touched it and then moved up off of it. Would have also been touching the bottom of the channel. But what actually happened was it broke through that. And again, that's why this looks like distribution. I was pretty sure that's what was going on, right? But this is just more confirmation that that's what's happening. Again, if you look at the schematic, what you're looking for is this break, right? UTAD, a break through support, a retest of that demand flip supply, and then more downside. And this break needs to come back down somewhere around this level after the sign of weakness, which in our case will be right in this zone right here. Like right here. Like right here. Right? This looks like textbook wick-off. To further confirm this theory that it was distribution, I started looking at the volume. Essentially, during distribution, what you're looking for is you're looking for increased selling volume. So on the dips, you have higher selling volume, and on the rallies, you have lower buying volume, right? This is Bitstamp, so the volume's a little bit sketchy. I'm using it because it has such a long time frame, and I want to show you guys some stuff that goes back several years. But this was a little bit clearer on some of the other charts, but still this will work. We see some high sell volume here. We see that on the rally we have low volume, but then we have higher sell volume. Right here we actually had a little bit higher buying volume. Over here, increased sell volume, increased sell volume. See how the bigger sticks are all red? Not all red, but mostly red. That's a sign of distribution. Again, there's no guarantee this is distribution. Even now, we don't know for sure that's what it is. It's just the theory that I'm leaning toward, right? So what I'm watching for is I'm really watching to see if this thing can perhaps come all the way back up to the 61.8, which will be right around the bottom of that channel, and then get more downside from there. And when I say more downside, I'm not necessarily talking about a bear market just yet. Right now, first things first, I'm just wondering if we're going to get a proper correction back down to a 61.8, which I'll show you in just a second. Right? So I'm thinking something like this, and maybe something like that. And if I draw a trend extension on that, it would look something like that. Give us a target down around 46K. Okay? So not talking like 1K targets or anything. So that's kind of what that trend would look like. Again, if it moves down. The first major target, if you will, that I would be looking for, that would be like a little trend target just on this move here. But if it does end up having a full correction, I think it's completely feasible that what we're just going to do is go down to the 61.8 down here. Now, you might be thinking, James, no, that's a $20,000 drop from the top. It is, but even in a bull market, it's very normal to drop 30 to 40%. Bitcoin has done it in every bull market in its history, right? Its corrections are typically 30 to 40%. They cut pretty deep and they shake out a lot of weaker hands. Now, I'm not saying you're a weak hand if you sell, right? We don't know if this is a correction. We don't know if it's going to be a correction. It might just keep going down or it might not go down at all. I'm just saying that's the way the corrections typically work. So if it does go down there, the target does make sense, right? There is this fairly big liquidity gap here. It might throw a tail down to fill some of that in. Right here, there's obviously that old all-time high, which should, if the bulls can hold it, flip to support right around that level. So makes sense to me that that might happen, okay? Now, there's a few things that make me wonder what's going on with this. If this was the only thing I saw, I'd be like, yep, I'm 99% sure that's what's going on. But it's not the only thing I see. There's a few weird things going on with this right now. So those are all bearish things. Now I'm going to give you the flip side and really confuse you because I'm going to show you some bullish things, right? First things first, it could be that what we're really doing is just going back to test this old trend line from back in December, right? Looks something like, come on, like this. Yeah, it had this one tail that went below it, but the closed on top of it. And that could be our long-term trend. Not long-term, but our 3 or 4 month trend that we're simply retesting. That's possible, right? The other thing that caught my attention was if you take a look at the total market cap chart, not Bitcoin, but the total market cap chart, we essentially have a parallel channel that we've been in for a few months that looks something like this. We did have a false break right here, but you can see we got our clean touches here, clean touches here, clean touches here. We've got start over channel back here, clean touch and clean touch. So we're still in an upward channel. And you can see that right now, kind of finding resistance in the midpoint. So that's still bullish in nature. And this is, something that's a little weird because you've got Bitcoin looking kind of doggish, but then you have this total market cap that actually doesn't look too bad. Then you go look at Bitcoin dominance. And Bitcoin looks like it's being completely dominated by the altcoins. It's fallen all the way down into this demand zone down here, right? And if it loses that, we could see Bitcoin dominance drop considerably, maybe even low 40s, right before we take another pause. So I'm wondering if maybe Bitcoin is going to pause or even pull back some while some of these alts move up. And you might be wondering, wait a minute, if Bitcoin goes down, alts go down. You're right in 99% of cases, except I still remember in December of 2017, Bitcoin topped out. But my portfolio didn't personally top out for a few months because I had so many alts back then, and they continued to run, many of them up through April and May. So I'm wondering if alts aren't going to put in some kind of blow off top over the next few months and maybe outperform Bitcoin. And when I take a look at some of the alt charts, for example, if I looked at OMG Bitcoin, a lot of these charts are showing these same types of buy signals. I'm not telling you to go out and long anything. That's your business. I'm just saying this is one of my buy signals that I watch for is double bottom on a weekly chart. When I see that, more often than not, I'm going to long that. Now, this is an OMG / Bitcoin pair. It's not US dollars. But if you look, there's your neckline. It broke it, came back down and retested it. Perfect. So could it fail? Yeah, it could definitely fail. But that looks bullish to me. And then you go look at some coins like, well, Neo's one that I have been holding for a few years that's been going absolutely nuts the last 24 hours. And yeah, you see this big, huge pump, and at first reaction is like, oh, it's a pump and dump. But if you look, it hit this resistance, and so far it's been rejected. And if you pull this line back, look at this. See that? It's really testing this point from way back here in 2017. But when you put the volume profile in there, watch what happens. It's broke through this major point of control now, right? So now we've got this major support, if you want to call it that, sitting right underneath this. So I came close to selling some of my NEO earlier, but I thought, you know what, screw it. Been holding it for almost 4 years at this point, so I'll just hold it a little longer and see what happens. I did buy that with US dollars, so in all fairness on that one, I'm not down versus Bitcoin. I'm actually up in a huge way. But I already took profits on part of it a few years ago, so it's a free position. But point being, when I look at these alts, a lot of these alts, they just look good versus Bitcoin. They don't look as good versus US dollars. They look scary as hell. Like this is the total alt market cap. That looks scary. This giant wick coming out of last week looks very scary. And then right now we've got this spinning top, but I don't care too much about the spinning top yet because there's 6.5 days left on a 7-day candle, right? So it means nothing. But this did look a little bit sketchy back here. So this could also be due for a major correction, or it could be due for, full on bear market. I mean, when you look at this, this could have been throwback here and this could have been euphoria. A lot of the alts that I'm holding, I noticed this the other day. A lot of the alts that I'm holding are up 50 to 100x in the last 13 months. Now, that doesn't mean that I made 50 to 100x because I bought them way before March of 2020. I paid a lot more money for them than what they fell to. But, for example, I have metal in my portfolio, and I don't remember exactly what I paid for metal back in the day. It was $5, $6, something like that. And it had fallen to basically nothing, right? You look back here in March of 2020, it actually hit a low of 13 cents. So basically I had lost my entire investment, so I just sat on it. But if you look at this, from March of 2020 to the high in March of 2021, just 1 year later, this thing ran up 8,000%, 82x. So a lot of these alts did have a insane bull market. It's just that people didn't notice it that much because they were all waiting for it to come back to these levels. So it's entirely possible this thing's going to come back down. I don't know. Who knows, right? So those are some things to consider. Jumping back over to Bitcoin, this is another scary thing for the bulls. So there's two things that, kind of are freaky, if you will. The first one, obviously I talked about in previous videos, is this weird pi cycle that people started talking about that I'd never heard of before. Well, they said it called the top in the previous 3 cycles, and I was pretty skeptical of that. I thought, okay, whatever. But now I'm starting to wonder a little bit, right? So it called the top in 2017. It predicted the top in late 2013, and it was a few days off in the middle of 2013, but during those few days it pumped about 80%. But still within a week. So when it came in on Bitcoin last week, I was like, I do want to watch that. Well, now we're starting to see the signs of this distribution. We had this huge 18% sell-off, and now suddenly it's like maybe this pi cycle top's not such a joke. Maybe it's really worth paying attention to. So keep your eye on that. The other thing that I noticed today is some of you will remember this, some of you will not. Depends on when you started watching the channel. But if you think back to 2019 and a little bit in 2020, but especially in 2019, one of the ways that I was able to make some really, really spot on predictions was using something that I referred to as the bear market box. In fact, let me just pull up the chart. And each time the price would get to a certain point within this box, I had a pretty good inclination of what I wanted to do with Bitcoin, right? So for example, when it broke north of the box, I knew that, hey, I should probably long Bitcoin. And that was a great place to go long. Back around 5K, ran up to 13.8K. When it fell back inside the box, I knew it was a place that I wanted to probably go short. Fell inside the box, had the retest. Another place that I wanted to get short, right around 10K, boom. Right? Came down, tested the top again, acted as resistance on that crazy October candle, boom, fell. So on and so forth. Broke through the box, retested it, big move up. Fell back into the box, retested it, boom, huge move down in March, right? That box has been freaking money. Right here, retested it in May. I ignored it because of my bearish bias. and missed getting in on Bitcoin at 8,500 bucks, and look at this huge run. Tested again, I missed it here as well, right? Back here is a little misleading because it actually was looking bearish and then it just kept going up. So it's not perfect by any means, but point being, this bear market box, as I've nicknamed it, you really don't want to see Bitcoin inside of it, right? You just don't. Turn the lines off here so it's a little easier to see what's going on. Well, here we are knocking on the door to this quote unquote bear market box. All right. And if you go back in 2017, you can see that it did tiptoe down in there, right? This is 2017 right here forward. During the corrections in the early part of the year, it did tiptoe down in there. And in the later part of the year, it tiptoed down to right around 50 RSI. So I'm going to watch this because as a bull, you don't want to see this drop below 50. And if you're wondering, am I a bull or a bear? I'm both. Okay. And what I mean by that is at this point, I'm still not a believer in Bitcoin. I still think Bitcoin is a big fairy tale, if you will, but I'm holding a considerable amount of cryptocurrency because I was holding it from last year. And if you guys were watching the channel last year, you remember me saying I'm holding about 2 Bitcoin worth of crypto and a lot of it's alts. Well, we all know what altcoins did to last year, right? So I'm holding a pretty considerable amount of crypto. And at this point, I'd like to see it just keep going up because, yeah, obviously I don't want my portfolio to dump 80%, right? Or 50% or any percent. I don't want it to go down at all. I want it to just keep going up. You know, this 18% dump kind of sucked, even though I expected it. You know, I didn't sell off my HODL coins. So I am watching that. And by the way, hopefully some of you were able to catch that move. I've talked about one of my setups. Most of the setups I don't teach for free. I teach them inside my paid courses. But one of the setups that I've shared for free several times on this channel was my 3 little pig setup. And if you guys remember how that worked, you look for a high and then you wait for 3 lower highs like this. Boom, boom, boom. And what you're looking for is while those are making lower highs, you want your price. There's the start. As I used to say, the host of the dinner party. Here's your first little piggy. Another higher high is your second little piggy. Another higher high is your third little piggy. And that's your short entry. So hopefully you guys saw that and were able to take advantage of it. Okay. I have no idea what's going to happen. I really don't. I know what I suspect, but I'm hoping I'm wrong, so I don't want to talk too much about it, right? I suspect that this is going to go down further than what people think it is, just because when I look at the market psychology chart, I felt like we were in thrill moving toward euphoria, and I still feel like that's what was going on. I'm just not sure if we are actually still in thrill and have yet to move to euphoria, or if this was the final, move up, and now we're going to start to see that bear market. A whole lot of topics, a whole lot of points of views. Try to point out the bullish scenarios, try to point out the bearish scenarios. And at this point, all I can say is good luck, right? Good luck. I don't know which way this thing is going. I don't even want to guess. What I do know is it looks like it's in distribution. It looks like at the very least, it wants to move back down and possibly retest these old levels back here. Whether it does it, I guess that depends on whether Elon Musk comes out and decides to tell you he bought a bunch of Bitcoin, because that's what, kind of triggered things back here. Of course, back here, it actually did have a bullish setup, so it's totally different. And I should point that out. Back here, there were bullish setups. There were long setups. There were really good reasons to go long back here other than Elon coming out. That was just kind of like the news story. Over here, there's not. Those bullish setups just aren't there, right? The one thing that you might be able to cling to if you're a bull, well, not the only thing, but one thing that you might look at if you're a bull is this did indeed come down and hit the 50 daily moving average, which has typically been a strong line of support in uptrends. You can see it right here. You can see it right here. So it's really fighting to keep that. And if you are bullish on Bitcoin, then I would suggest that you watch that and hope and pray that it closes on top of that thing. You do not want to see it close underneath it. It has not closed underneath that line since way back here in September, right? And nothing bad happened in September. It just dropped, consolidated, and then came right back up. But It's not always the case, right? One of the reasons that I was able to go short back in early 2020, or one of the reasons I was so bearish when everybody else, obviously thought I was nuts, was because it came underneath this line, had a bearish retest, and then collapsed. So, that's what you want to watch out for. You want to watch out for some type of bearish retest if it does break below it. Just breaking below it itself, not that big of a signal, but if it breaks below it, comes back up, say it's curving over, retest it, that's where you really want to be keen to be careful how you play, because it could just be something like that. And again, if this is wick off, that's kind of the scenario that I foresee happening. So anyway, what do I know? I'm some guy, right? So with all that being said, please remember, I am just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom. So nothing in the video is financial advice, nothing in the video is trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional financial advice from a licensed financial advisor, which I'm not, for making any type of investment in cryptocurrency or the stock market or precious metals. If you enjoyed the video, be sure and give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you have not already, be sure and check the description. There are links down there where you can support the channel as well as get access to additional content. This is James with Crypto Common Sense, reminding you to please trade safe.